Before we do get started, a big thank you to our hosting partners, CSS Commerce, Rob and team, and Print, Jonathan and team who are joining us as well, in addition to Maria Desetize, who essentially outlined all the logistics, coordinated our efforts, and really made today possible. So thank you all. In terms of the agenda, so first off, we're going to start off just by doing some introductions, and at the same time, we can begin the margarita preparation. Next, I'm going to go into leveraging PIM for a superior and personalized customer experience. After that, I'm going to hand it over to Rob, and Rob's going to cover digital transformation strategies for personalization. And last, but definitely not least, we'll go over to Jonathan for harnessing the power of personalized print and digital materials. And towards the end of the session today, we're going to have a short Q&A and wrap up. We do, of course, want this to be an interactive session. So if you have any questions, feel free to stop us, enter it into the chat, whatever you'd like, and we'll look towards those questions. All right, let's get started. So first off, my name is Alexander Semerel. I'm the Managing Director of ContentServe US. I've been with ContentServe for 6 years. A little bit more information around ContentServe. We're a leading PIM and DEM provider with roughly 20 years experience in the market. We operate across 3 main regions, that's JPAC, Europe, and US. And we have around 350 customers in both the B2B, B2C, and retail segments. So that's a little bit about me. Rob, can I hand it over to you for a short intro?
Sure. I'm the chief solutioneer of CSS Commerce. That means I get to do the fun things, right? Understand how we can help customers, understand what the trends are that make sense to implement, and try to tie it all together. So we're glad to be partners with both ContentServe and Print, as well as help our customers with digital transformation in ways that make an impact to the bottom line. We've been doing this about 6 years, and we've got some great clients, and I'm looking forward to today.
Thanks for joining, Rob. Jonathan?
Sure. I am Jonathan Drapieski. I'm the president and CEO of Print Americas. Print, if you've not heard of us, we're a global software company based in Germany, have been around 21 years now, kind of mirroring the lifespan of Adobe InDesign, and we're longtime partners with ContentServe in the capacity of kind of connecting that data that you manage to the creative marketing world. So connecting to Adobe InDesign and Illustrator and those kinds of things. We're the one of the largest companies in the world dedicated to doing just that little bit. So happy to be here.
Excellent specialization. Thanks for joining, Jonathan. All right, so that's going to wrap up our introductions. The next step that we have is the margarita preparation. Now, before we go forward, I think everyone should have their kits. Hopefully everyone's received that okay. Within the kits, there are instructions, and I think those instructions are spread out across 7 steps. So I'd recommend that everyone can start off with step 1, and as we continue through our session, everyone can make their margaritas, so we have kind of the best of both worlds there. And just in terms of preparation, what you'll need for today is a shaker, if you have one, a small plate, a knife. Please be careful. We would like an exciting and obviously interactive webinar, but not so exciting that we'll have, a sustained injury or something like that on our hands, and a cutting board as well. Okay, I think we can get started. So leveraging PIM for superior and personalized customer experiences. So there's been consistent and I would say constant growth experience within the e-commerce space, with marketplaces and the B2B segment playing a really, really pivotal role. First off, what we're going to see here on the left is that global B2B e-commerce markets are expected to grow, and significantly. So what we found is that the CAGR, or the compound annual growth rate, will be over 20% from 2023 to 2030 across those 7 years, with Gartner predicting in the visualization that they gave here that global e-commerce growth will reach $25 trillion in terms of turnover by 2027. Now, that's propelled and accelerated by the increasing shift of consumers making transactions online, but also by the increased amount of investments that companies are making towards strengthening their e-commerce offerings. Jonathan, Rob, when we were putting together these slides, did these statistics surprise you, or were they what you were expecting?
They're in line with what we see, right, in terms of two things. One, customer growth, right? A lot of companies, believe it or not, are in our space, are just coming into online. And then second is the amount of spend, right? They're seeing more and more of their revenue move online.
Yes.
And you know, in the last 6 years, we've seen, you know, we have a customer that was doing 100 million online and is doing close to $1 billion now, all online.
Yeah. What a shift,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And then, I mean, without question, and pretty obviously, COVID helped accelerate that transition as well. And as more and more organizations are recognizing the value that comes along with that kind of transformation, that easily explains the increase.
Yes. And I would say it's probably continued and even accelerated from COVID. All right. Well, by leveraging the capabilities of PIM, companies can begin to tailor their product content, their digital assets towards individual customer segments or channels. So this leads obviously to a few benefits, which are listed here on the right-hand side. Number one is enhanced engagement through improved connectivity and positive impressions with customers, which fosters more loyalty as a result. Higher conversions, for sure, matching the requirements or the needs of customers through the use of personalized content. And also, last but not least, is the improved customer satisfaction levels, where customers are feeling more familiar, let's say, with your business, your product offerings, which also leads to repeat purchases. Yeah. Now, our end-to-end solution, anything to add there, Rob, before I move on?
No, I think the repeat purchases, right, is a big piece of what's going on in terms of that growth as well, right? Where what you're talking about is exactly where things are going. But go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No interruption at all. All right, well, I really like this visualization that we've included because it encaptures a little bit what we do here at ContentServe with the Product Experience Cloud, which I think is unique. So starting off at the bottom left-hand side, what we'll see is consolidation, management, enrichment. And those are really core features, capabilities that you can think of when you're thinking about PIM and DEM, right? Workflows, task automation to help speed up and streamline the processes that today are being done manually. Supplier portal and onboarding, if your business is working with partners or vendors downstream that need to supply you with data, whether that's in CSV or Excel files, whatever format that may be, but making sure that we can onboard that properly before it's accepted into PIM. Data quality is our foundation. So when we even talk about AI in just a few moments, really making sure that we have the right quality of data dictates how useful AI will be for us. So that's really important to mention. And last but not least is digital asset management, or DAM. I think that's probably a USP of ContentServe is we're not just a PIM, but we also have the capabilities to manage assets, rich text files, videos, whatever format that may be within our system. And then moving upward towards artificial intelligence, that's a big component. I feel if any of our participants are talking to any SaaS or technology providers today, they'll most likely mention AI in some capacity. For us here at ContentServe, what that means is the ability to integrate generative AI through OpenAI, our connector, to help create and automate short descriptions, long descriptions, translations, helping save significant time from the users who were previously doing that step manually. And it also ties into DSA, or digital shelf analytics, which I'll speak to in just a moment. Now, as we transition towards the right-hand side of this visualization, we're going to also see shopping feed and the logo of shopping feed there. We acquired Shopping Feed as a business that was back in December of last year. And Shopping Feed helps us to improve our syndication capabilities here. So making sure that we can take the content, the assets that you're currently operating with, and supply that downstream to a variety of different marketplaces, different channels. We've included a subset here, like Amazon, eBay, Walmart, Target, but there's many, many more. I think roughly 850 that we can support and provide. In addition, we can also then integrate with channels like Salesforce, Commerce Cloud, Magento, Shopware, or on the print side with Jonathan's team as well. And then to close the loop, and I think that that's one feature that's really unique to Content Serve, is digital shelf analytics. So being able to take the product data, how products are converting downstream on a separate channel or shop, and provide information to category managers or marketing managers, how those products are performing, what can we do to improve their conversion rates, to optimize the content, the assets that are associated with those products, to try to optimize and improve the conversions or the purchases of those products. Rob, Jonathan, when you guys are also talking with customers, with existing clients as well, are these some of the topics that are coming up in your discussions?
Go ahead,
Jonathan.
I'd say, absolutely. It's that end-to-end flow. You need all of these components in place to be able to deliver that kind of product experience.
Yes.
Well, and I think one of the key things going on with our customers is trying to reduce the number of systems in the sense of being able to manage things easily, right? When you look at the number of connections that can be handled there, it's a lot. And, I just got done with, I'm actually here in Milwaukee, just finished talking to a client, and they have 21 different websites on different platforms all over the place. It's not an unusual problem. So how do you coordinate that? How do you get analytics? And how do you put things together in such a way that your team can actually manage them and grow the business? And I think that's actually a big part of it as well.
Absolutely. Having that interconnectivity there.
Yeah.
And I think a good point that's listed here at the bottom that I didn't even touch on is data needs to go to the market to create value, right? So the data that we currently have in the system needs to be shared downstream to your shop systems, to your mobile apps, to your catalogs in order to generate value for your business.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, next up, I just want to touch on the importance of PIM integration with digital transformation. And I think here PIM really acts as the foundational piece for managing product content, digital assets, ensuring that we have accuracy, reliability, and consistency across all of the channels, but also driving the personalized experiences that we just mentioned earlier. Integration, I think, Rob, you mentioned that just previously on the last slide, is really important to make sure that we have the right connectivity, one with your existing ecosystem today in terms of websites, mobile apps, channels, marketplaces, but also being able to accommodate future systems as well, which you may change and replace. Now, this really sets, I think, the bedrock for efficient data exchange or communication. I think, Rob, you're going to speak to this a little bit more in detail in just a few slides, Ryan.
I am. I was also going to quickly suggest something. We're not we're a nice medium-sized group. If someone has I'm going to be showing a little bit about examples, but if someone wants to discuss something or has a question, please use the little hand raise, right? There's a little raise your hand and we'll chat with you and talk about your specific questions or thoughts. Keep going.
Happy to. Yeah. Okay. And next up is PIM integrations with print strategies. So print is really a vital channel to support. And, if you've been to Shop Talk, the NGNA, I think it's Grocery Shop, these shows, typically they're in Las Vegas, the amount of interest and engagement there is enormous. I know that, Jonathan, whenever we speak together, you always mention that to me. And I think that this is really a core channel to consider for many, businesses, whether they're B2B, B2C, or in retail. The advantage of working with a PIM is being able to not only centralize your product content and your data, but also to collaborate with a partner like Print to tailor and to create digital and printed assets like data sheets, price lists, brochures, or catalogs for specific channels and customer groups. I think that helps you maintain higher levels of data quality within content serve, but also ensures that the information you're sending downstream is accurate, it's consistent, it's correct. Jonathan, we'll go into print and digital strategies as well. That's going to be our section after Rob. Anything else that you'd like to mention here?
No, it's a very symbiotic relationship, right? You need to be able to manage data and then you can spend a lot of money managing data, but if you then are unable to leverage that data and deliver it to the customer at the right time in the right context, you've spent a lot of money on data management. So it really, at the same time, you can't deliver stuff that you don't have in a clean, consistent manner. So it really is two pieces of the pie that really go together.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I just wanted to say, print isn't going away, right? We always talk about, there's going to be less paper. Well, there is and there isn't. Certainly we use our phones for a lot more than ever before, but I'll give you an example of something we built for a large home improvement type of store. And what they needed, right, was an ability to print out signage on the fly, because when you have a will meet or beat anyone's prices, right, they would rather have the price right when someone walks in. So if a hammer is $12.57 at the competitor, they'd love it to say $12.56. So they do a lot of on-demand printing, which is essentially digital, which is what Jonathan's product is all about. And you can really only manage that with good data and background, because you've got to have the image of the hammer, you've got to have a little bit of specifications, and all of those are driven electronically. And the best place to contain it when you've got that many SKUs is PIM. So this isn't going away, whether it's signage or a grocery flyer, right? I still prefer grocery flyers to using my phone because they're just easier to look at. But let's jump in. And again, if anyone has an example, I'd love to hear about it. I'm going to try and give you some of ours.
Sounds good, Ron. Yeah, and I'm going to start making my margarita in the meantime.
Good. Yeah, I see you all are doing that. That's awesome. So, look, I'm going to talk about some strategies. How do you actually try to transform your company, right? And I think the first thing that digital strategy allows you to do is to make everything easier for your customer. If it's hard to buy something, we don't buy. And that's true B2B versus anything else. If you can make a solution that makes it easier for customers to buy from you, if it's apples to apples, same price, same delivery, same everything else, guess what? We'll throw it over the edge. The fact that you have an easy to use reordering interface, right? And the way that you do that, right, is through personalization. We can understand not only the company level, we can understand the people level. What are they actually doing when they're on the site? And that's very easy, right, to follow. You don't need cookies or anything else. If you've got an account set up, if you have the ability to relate that person on arrival, which is not difficult, you can personalize it. And I'm going to encourage you, it's not just B2C that's a smart thing to do. It's B2B, because more and more digitally native people are coming into, the executive suite, right? So, and the purchasing and decision suite, right? So, my generation is now kind of hitting the peak, but we've got tons and tons and lots of millennials and Gen Z who grew up with the entire idea of a computer and a phone in their hand, and they have a high expectation of how things should work. So anytime that you can recommend, show, deliver something that makes it easier will drive a repeat buy, right? So the first thing is a lot of this is driven out of a good account setup with some good information about who it is that's using it, not just their company and their title, but try to gain a little bit of information around who they are, what's the department they're in, what's their view. And that's the old persona discussion, but you can get much deeper today with some AI. Make it easy for them to access their order history. Make sure you're bubbling to the top the things they buy continuously. And then bring unique recommendations, right, based on what they do. Now, honestly, I don't think Amazon does a tremendously great job of showing other things to buy. I think we do a better job, and that is right because if you're doing a B2B site, right, I know what the bill of materials is, especially if I've asked them to load it, right? What's your bill of materials? And you're buying against that bill of materials. I can use some intelligence to say, you know what, they might be looking to build that particular kit. They might be looking to examine a couple of options across this category because I can see them putting together their cart. Those kinds of things, using machine learning and AI to see what they're doing, tremendously changes the buying effort for your customer, and it drives that repeat buy. Now, I left all of this oh, I know what happened. Okay, I'm going to pull up my own little slide. Hang on. Okay, so I had some other points. Okay, if you create accounts, right? If you do payment, for example, here's an idea that we put together. Every different PO for a company, we actually show how much is left on the PO. They know what they can buy. I don't want them frustrated, right, where they go to buy something and they don't have enough left on the PO. So I show the PO balance and they'll know, okay, is this going to fit into my current buy or not? Because I'd really rather them know they need to go get another purchase order issued. I'd really rather stop anything that's going to slow them down for buying before they do anything that's going to make them want to go somewhere else. Last viewed items, most viewed items, complementary products, right? We talked about that in terms of how do we provide an experience that lets you quickly select what it is you want to purchase? And then how do we give you some intelligent options? Well, one thing is, right, to drive some features is remember they're searching, but I like to call searching finding. Ensure everything that they look for is easily found. Make sure there are categories. If they buy off of those categories, if they look at those categories, be sure that you're displaying more of that and the brands they buy. A number of companies may have specifications. They may have specified certain types of purchases, and therefore, let's display more of that. You can use AI features to track that usage and views and actually gain more insight than just what they looked at, but rather what's the timing of when they look at it. Are there trends and habits that you should provide an incentive at the time to actually make sure that they buy from you? Let me give you some examples, right? I promised some examples. Example one, we have a client where they sell plumbing parts. And those plumbing parts, I'll give you an example like a faucet. You can have a Polar faucet, you can have a Delta faucet, you can have no names, you can have all kinds of different brands. But if I search for a Kohler faucet with specific nickel and I want it threaded a certain way and I want it to look a certain way, we display that exactly as they have asked for. However, in finding things, it's important to give someone a few extra options. And the first option we always show them is whatever product that matches those specifications that has the highest margin for our company that we did this for. So It's a little cheaper than the Kohler. It's got the same specifications, but it happens to be the OEM product, and the company makes the most money on it. We've raised conversion on their highest products, on their highest margin products by 15%. And a 15% on a large margin product makes a lot of money for a distributor, where essentially most of the time margins are small. We give you another quick example, because I don't want to take, actually I'm on time. That's an amazing thing. Example, so provide shipping calculations. Everyone does it. You put some things in the cart, you get a shipping calculation. The next step is what? If you spent another $100, you get free shipping. That's normal. But what if you had a system that can tell you, right? If you're shipping to multiple locations, if you added this one item here and 2 items there, you'll not only get a shipping discount, but you'll actually be able to get it at the next tier of speed, or you've increased enough to get a break in costs, and suddenly they get a massive win for them, right, in terms of cost. But the truth is, it costs you nothing. You're not making, typically companies are not making money on shipping. It's just costing the client, and it's a wash to you. So moving that money forward, where you're asking them to add a couple items and get a big win, has also resulted in increased sales for our clients. Does anyone have thought, question before I move? Okay, because I don't typically read slides, so make sure you've read it.
Rob, just one point from my side. You mentioned the changing skill set and a more digital savvy executive team being present in organizations earlier. I'm just wondering, from your perspective, have you seen an impact to the change management process for these organizations, or how they adopt new systems as a result?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And it requires a certain level of sophistication. So I think there's an answer that's yes, and there's an answer that's no. So I'm going to start with the no. Where a company is suddenly being run, or suddenly they've moved into the management team. What we're seeing is a number of these executives simply expect a certain amount of computer skills and the way they want to do it. They've been frustrated along the way that the company hasn't moved into that. So they're moving quickly, but the change management isn't as good as it could be, because they just have always lived that, and therefore have an expectation that it's just going to work. That's a blind spot. On the other hand, where it is well run, where change management is well understood and it's communicated well, those are run by reasonably sophisticated executives, and tend to be in some of our larger clients, right, where they recognize, okay, I've still got a workforce that we need to be able to use tools that they're comfortable with, but they need to use them in a different way. So here's an example. Thank you for bringing it up. Here's an example. We put together an image recognition system, where instead of scanning barcodes, right, you can just take a picture of the product for a reorder. It makes it faster, and it's easier to do the change management on. I don't have a barcode reader anymore, but I have a cell phone. If all I have to do is take a picture, upload it, and the system recognizes what it is, and now I've got my reorder, I've satisfied several things, right? I've made it easier for your folks to use it. They recognize that the tool needed to be ubiquitous, and they've recognized that this is an easy process to implement. And part of it is because they really thought about, what do they need? What do their people have? And do they want to go out and invest in some expensive equipment? So instead, they invested in some AI software, right, that made it possible to do that.
Got it. Okay.
Cool. All right, let's talk about the next one, because I actually think this is interesting for me. So we were just talking about mobilizing mobile, right? Mobile is in the, I'm based in Texas, and mobile is in the oil field, mobile is in the warehouse, mobile is everywhere. And if it isn't optimized to fit in someone's hand on their phone, you are missing opportunities, right, for purchase. A lot of, if you will, e-commerce 2.0, right, that has gone in for these companies isn't mobile optimized. And it needs to be, because if you can make it so that you can buy at the moment, replenish or restock at the moment, you've captured an opportunity to sell something versus trying to remember or write it down and coming back and doing it. You're essentially creating velocity around your revenue. So features like visual search, making orders easy to place, going through mobile is absolutely worth every penny. Now, here's something to think about differently, right? You hear words like gamification, and you hear words about, purchasing experiences. Let me relate it to something that we've been doing in the corporate world a long time. I fly United. I only fly United because I'm a 1K on United. The odds are I'm going to get upgraded to first class. The odds are very good I'm going to get upgraded to first class. I am going to get treated special. I'm going to get treated, really well. Now, that is a plus. And companies have allowed their people to make these choices for years and years and decades, right? So what happens is employees get a perk, right, that costs very little, right, that incents the behavior of the purchasing decision. Now, if they're large companies, they have corporate contracts, but most companies, right, will, and we do, right? Some of our folks fly American, some of them fly whatever's cheapest because they don't care. That's fine. I fly United because it's within the cost parameters, as long as it's within the cost parameters, and I get a benefit. Gamification is no different than frequent flyer miles or, loyalty at a hotel. If you can make it so that you're encouraging usage by a purchasing agent or by a purchase or someone doing the purchase, where they can accumulate points and get some sort of goods, right? Hey, we'll send you a ball cap, all the way up to we'll send you some sort of gift card or whatever. Incenting someone to come back by achieving certain goals is gamification. Gamification is also this very strange thing called social reward, right? So social reward, a little harder to execute, but allows people to talk about it within and compare their experiences, let's say, within a client company. But I strongly suggest that you take a look at and think about loyalty as a way of incenting return on on certain products. It makes a ton of sense. Did I hear a question? Probably not. Nonetheless, that's my thoughts. There's a lot of things you can do now with AI. There's a lot of things that you can look at, but practical things that incent return, that incent buying, that make it easier for someone to do these things is definitely going to drive revenue for your company.
Great. Okay. Any other questions? Yeah, thanks very much, Rob. Really appreciate the examples there. If not, then we can go into the next section, which I believe is with Jonathan, harnessing the power of personalized print and digital materials.
Awesome.
Because everyone squeezed their lines. That's the
exactly. That's what I was going to start off with.
Yeah.
Takes me back to earlier days, but everybody take a drink.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. I've been encouraged by Maria, just enjoying the webinar the whole way along. So I'm gonna have to have my margarita afterwards, since I'm not in a place I can use my kit.
Can play the word game, and every time I say the word OmniChannel, take a drink.
There you go.
Sounds good.
Sounds good. We'll take you up on that, Jonathan.
All right. So, hi again, everyone. So I'll just start by saying it. You know, a lot of times, okay, we're on a webinar and we're talking about print. What year is it, right? And I go to a lot of conferences where they're talking about OmniChannel. And, you know, everyone's talking about their websites and their marketplaces and those kinds of things. But, you know, what's left out is kind of like the first step in that process, which is, you know, omnichannel implies that you're being able to touch customers at the full spectrum of touch points or channels. And so what I'm going to talk to everybody about is kind of some of those sometimes forgotten touch points or things that, hey, we don't do that anymore. You know, I talked to a customer this morning. Hey, we don't print our price books anymore in a B2B space. And I asked, why? Do your customers not want them? And they're like, no, our customers ask us every year if they can still have them, but it took us too long to produce them. And by the time we did, they were out of date. I said, well, what if that problem goes away? And they're like, wow, can that happen? I'm like, yes. So that's what we're going to be talking a little bit about. So go ahead, Alexander. You can slide past that. So when we talk about omnichannel touch points, people are often surprised by, you know, what we mean by that and what our solution is actually used for. Oh, print, we don't do catalogs anymore. My favorite is we don't do any printing. Or any kind of work like that. I said, well, you know, I notice you have products that have packages that have labels and warning labels and nutrition labels and those kinds of things. That's data combined with creative. In fact, creative packaging design is one of the hottest trends in the CPG space right now. And how do you design a visually appealing package to attract your customers? You know, innovative things like, you know, I don't know how many folks on the call are members of Costco. The Costco Connection, which is their Magalog, so a combination of kind of lifestyle content. But if you really look at it, there's an awful lot of product content and product sale data in that booklet as well. A lot of the grocery store chains are doing the same things. They'll send you the, you know, Memorial Day cookout guide, and there'll be, you know, personalized coupon offers in that book along with recipes and those kinds of things. That's all the combination of, you know, good product management data, and usually in a PIM system like Content Serve, and then being able to leverage that across those touch points. People are often surprised to find out that 60% of what our system is used for, when we talk about outputs from Adobe InDesign or Illustrator, or even now Adobe Express, never sees a printer. Kind of a misnomer with the company name Print, right? But 60 to 70% never sees a printer. It could just be digital PDFs, things like banner ads. You know, if you think of most banner ads on websites, it's a combination of detailed product information and then maybe pricing information, and then, you know, obviously the creative design. So all kinds of different things our system can be used for across the spectrum of touch points. Next, please. So I'm going to talk B2B and then I'll talk B2C, because I know we have a mixed audience on today. So we talk to people all the time, and, you know, we have customers printing 5,000 and 6,000 page parts catalogs. And that's really great if all the customers you want or you're sending these things to are interested in all 5,000 to 6,000 parts that you may offer. But what if I'm a tool manufacturer and I'm going to see Home Depot today? And I know that Home Depot is only interested in my hammers and screwdrivers. They don't care about my drills, saws, and all the other tools I produce. They're right. You shouldn't print out a book that thick of everything. But, what if you start doing very highly segmented, targeted, personalized, or even on-demand versions of those catalogs and price lists? Particularly in the B2B space, in B2B manufacturing in particular, catalogs and price books are lifeblood. Particularly if you are selling internationally. When we first engage with customers, one of my favorite questions to ask is, how many languages is your price book, a catalog available in? And they'll say, oh, we print it in English. How many countries do you sell to? Well, we sell to 15 different countries throughout, Europe and South America. And you're only publishing the content in English. Why? And it's, well, do you know how long it would take to create all of those different versions or variants of the catalog in those different languages? I said, well, if you're using our solution, no time at all. By hand, yes. So one of the use cases, strong use cases in the B2B space is the idea of very highly segmented, personalized, whether they be catalogs, price books, data sheets, those kinds of things are all, ripe for efficiency. And again, it's about getting that well-managed, we've now talked about having very well-managed data, and now we get to the front end piece of that. And how can you leverage all of that data you have locked away in your PIM and your CRM and your ERP, so that, Home Depot's price for something may be different than ma and pa hardware store at the corner price for things. So being able to generate the appropriate price books, we even have, our system has a web interface to it where, your salesperson could come in and say, I'm going to see customer X today. Give me this, 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 and this. Click, and lo and behold, their PDF is literally delivered right to the customer. So that's the kind of efficiency that you can gain by using more modern technology and techniques. So next, please. The famous data sheet and sales sheet. Talked to a customer 2 weeks ago that is maintaining 15,000 individual PDFs for their SKUs by hand. So they have a small army of contractors whose job it is, every time there's a product change or a new product or, a slight rebrand of something, they have to go in and individually touch and republish all of those data sheets. That's craziness. Their entire process from the time they say they want to make a change to the time it hits their website is about 2 weeks. We have an automated data sheet service that plugs into PIM and will automatically generate the data sheet for you when you make a change in the PIM. Or at very worst, make a change in the PIM and press a button that says generate data sheet. Doesn't need to go to marketing, doesn't need to go through 50 cycles. And guess what? It automatically, because there's a connection to the PIM, has the most current information in it. That's what I call I'm always a fan of the crawl, walk, run ways of implementing software. That's kind of the crawling to the walking of data sheets. We have a customer that's on the screen called Waga, one of the world's largest manufacturers of electronic components. If you go to one of their product pages, most of them have a button that says generate data sheet. That pops up a little window and ask you what you would like on your data sheet. Maybe I don't want images. Maybe I want related products. Maybe I want safety information. And then click generate data sheet. And within a minute or two, on demand is 100% personalized data sheet to that consumer or customer with exactly the information they want when they want it. And again, even if you've maintained your product data 2 minutes earlier, you're getting the most current information. Compare that to the maintaining thousands by hand. The ROI, by the way, on that project is going to be very, very high, as you can imagine. Next slide.
Mhm.
And just because it's been a while, OmniChannel.
OmniChannel.
Cheers.
So,
Cheers.
another kind of we get asked all the time, well, how do you play in e-commerce? Let me give you an example of what one of our customers did. They were, as most e-commerce companies, having a problem with shopping cart abandonment. And so they had done the typical retrigger email offer, those kinds of things, and they weren't having the conversion or the success that they wanted. So they decided to try something else. So what they do is they take nightly shopping cart abandonment data and run it through an offer management system. So it's not just a complete retrigger of, hey, I saw you were looking at this, you look at it again. There's some intelligence built into that offer system. They run it then through our system to generate a one-to-one personalized postcard. And the postcard form factor here, I think, plays a key role. That is then sent to the printer overnight and sent out via hard mail the next day. The results they found were very interesting. First of all, anyone on the phone who's the marketing type, the eyeball rate on that is north of 90%. Again, it's a postcard, right? When all of us during COVID, and here COVID helps us out a little bit, because what was our big trip out most days? It was going to the mailbox. So you go to the mailbox and you shuffle through your junk mail, right? Even if it's junk mail, your eyeballs see it. The interesting piece of this was that in their analysis, their conversion rate was 3 to 4x what the conversion rate of the follow-up email was. Wow. So, when you think about some innovative ways and innovative touch points that you can do. And again, I think the key thing here was they didn't send them a big catalog. They didn't send them a letter that you had to open. They sent a postcard that you couldn't help but see when you're shuffling through your mail. So just an interesting story on how an offline touch point, whether you call it print or something else, or direct mail or something else, remains very, very effective. If you're like me, anytime you get around the holidays, you get an enormous number of catalogs from mail order companies, and they still do those for a reason, right? They are very, very effective. That kind of marketing remains extraordinarily effective for that product introduction, the product inspiration. In a prior life, I spent a long time in web analytics, and what I always tell people is try and introduce a new product on page 8 of your website and see what happens. You're not going to get very much traffic. If you put something on page 8 of your catalog, you're going to get introduction and traffic based on that. So it's really kind of combining old school marketing, but done in a very new school technological way, with that transaction happening online in e-commerce. So it's one of the things, if you look at the analytics, I say is I think sometimes, for particularly companies that still do print marketing, I think sometimes their lead generation analytics get skewed, and it's like, look how much traffic our Google brought us, our Google spend brought us, and it's like, well, what inspired that push the button to go search for something on Google, right? A lot of times it's the catalog. So next slide. So, as I said, this is very symbiotic. You must have very clean, reliable product data. And nobody's perfect. I do joke that there's no better data cleansing exercise than a print automation project, because if you're missing something or something's inconsistent, it will show up in a way. So we one of our specialties is that we're able to connect to multiple data systems. So say you have your product data in PIM, your pricing's in ERP, your segmentation is in your CRM, and you have a bunch of CMS content. Our system has the ability to connect to all of those systems simultaneously. So whether you're working in InDesign or it's 100% automated on demand, nobody has to know that that's coming from 5 different systems. You know, if you're the marketing designer, you don't need to know or care where all that data comes from. You just need it on the page. And so being able to access all that information that's locked away in all those data sources and put it to use and put it to personalized, targeted use, I think is a pretty powerful way of getting value out of your PIM or other data management projects. I mean, all of us who work in this segment know that there's value in PIM projects, in data management and content management, but sometimes that ROI is harder to quantify specifically. When you combine that with a system like ours that says, hey, it used to take us, 9 months to create our Christmas catalog. Now it takes us 3 weeks. That is very hard ROI that is directly attributable both to your investment in print, obviously, but also your investment in that PIM and that product data management system. So it's really that symbiotic relationship that generates the win-win situation for everybody. So, and I think that's that was my part. Said would love to connect with connect with me on LinkedIn if you have any questions. But thank you all for joining. And just before I turn it back over, OmniChannel.
OmniChannel. Thanks very much, Jonathan. Really appreciate that. That's actually going to wrap up the session for today. But what I would recommend is if anyone has any questions, any topics for us to cover, we've included our contact details here, but we can still take 5 or 10 minutes right now. Just if anyone wants to ask us any questions, any comments, feedback, thoughts, please let us know.
Yeah. What are you all working on? What are we missing? Very silent crowd.
The margaritas.
The margarita. Let me maybe just mention one point here. I think it was you, Jonathan, that you mentioned crawl, walk, run. Yeah. So start slowly, look towards the initial benefits. Just, for any of our participants who may be joining today, what are some of the activities? What does the process look like when they have at a high level an understanding of the requirements that they need? They may need to look towards data management, consolidation of product content, digital assets, aligned potentially with print and digital catalogs as well. What could we recommend our participants today that they can do internally to prepare for that?
You guys, who are you asking, Alex? I'm sorry.
I'm asking you, Rob, and you, Jonathan.
Oh, the two of us. Okay. I was waiting for Jonathan, and then I was like, okay, there's silence. But
no.
Why don't you start? Why don't you start, John?
No, go ahead, Rob.
All right. So in crawl, walk, run, right? Here's a few things come to mind. First, it doesn't have to be perfect. A lot of problems when we're implementing, and you mentioned change management. Sometimes customers want perfect, and that can be the enemy of on time and working, right? So controlling the amount of changes. If you've scoped something and you want to get something right, as an engineer, use it. You'll discover a lot more about what you actually need than continuing to think about what you need in the future. So there's an iterative process that you should go through, and it is crawl, walk, run, right? So I'll give you an example. We did a process for doing sales integrating the e-commerce system with sales reporting and sales sheets for their salespeople, right? And the idea was to bring it together and get a consolidated view. However, the process began to encounter everything. The sales sheets got larger, the process, the reports, as opposed to starting with the limited set of data that we had proposed and actually letting it walk through a designed process for everyone to experiment and see, right? Crawl. It became a very long project in which we had to do a lot of adjustment for the customer. If you start with a crawl, you document the process, and I think this is true in any business process. It is true in manufacturing, it's true in selling to a customer. You revise, and then you walk, and you revise, and now you're running. There's benefit to an iterative process in these things. Yeah, and it's true, I think, in print as well. Don't you agree, Jonathan?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, we look for quick wins. You don't go from completely manual to one button automation very often overnight, right? So start with those quick wins. I mean, I always say these projects involve technology, business process, and organizational change, and it's never in that order of importance. So knowing your organization, knowing, hey, we're going to introduce this bit of functionality first. So we're going to start, before we tackle our massive product guide, we're going to take the next 3 weeks and we're going to automate our data sheet process. Quick, simple wins builds credibility with the team, builds confidence in the solution, and then we start taking it from there. Maybe you have a 500-page product guide, and 200 of them are very similarly laid out, and then you have a couple hundred other pages that are more intricate. Take the easy win and do the 200 that are very repeatable, and then build on that in the next iteration of things. Start with segmentation versus one-to-one personalization, and again, build on those quick wins. I think, Rob, you had an excellent point, and I live in Michigan, so everything's a car reference. The Cadillac is not the right solution for every situation. Sometimes we have to remember that the Chevy is a perfectly reliable, most part, form of transportation. So recognizing and identifying those quick wins and then building it. And this sounds so contrived and simple, but those of us who do this across company after company after company, see these things continue to occur every day. One of the corporate hashtags we like to use is "there is a better way." And I think sometimes just organizations have accepted this is the way we've always done it. We have to do it that way. And it's not always the case, but you have to manage that organizational change very, very carefully as you go through these projects, or else you end up in, the stereotypical, ERP implementation that takes 15 years and nobody knows why you ever started it in the first place.
It's absolutely true. And the adage, right? The Pareto principle is true in just about anything. Start with a smaller bite. If you start with a 20% solution that's going to get you a lot of benefit up front, you've now created credibility for your team in your organization. You've created credibility for the idea in the first place. And you generally see out of that, okay, we bit off a certain amount. We were able to chew it, and we were able to demonstrate that it tasted good. Now we can go, and there's a lot more work to get the rest of the benefit, but you've got the organization and the entire team behind you, and you can then tackle the larger set of problems and optimize them.
All right. I think we're just about at the hour. Short check-in with our participants. If there are any questions, feel free to ask us. Rob, Jonathan, before we close off for today, any final thoughts?
I just hope everybody has enjoyed this and enjoyed the margaritas. Kind of a hopefully a little bit more fun and different way to do this than your typical just join the webinar. So again, feel free to reach out to any of us.
Yeah.
We make a pretty good team when all the solutions and the implementation are tied together.
All true. And a lot of what we do is just talk about ideas. So, don't worry about asking, a question that doesn't seem relevant. They're all relevant.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, we have 600 global implementations of our technology, and everyone's, well, we're different. You're not going to be able to. We've seen it before. Honestly, we have. And the other thing I always say is we've seen worse. So
Actually, we have a similar. It could be worse. Trust us, it could be worse. Anyways, that said, I do want to say thank you for everyone spending time with us and listening to us, and hopefully we've shared something valuable, whether it be some data or an experience or whatever. But again, thank you.